Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to take a look at the Transformers Legacy Evolution Wave 4 Robots in Disguise 2015 Universe Deluxe Class Strongarm. Let me know anything of this figure in the comment section down below. Is it a pickup or a pass? Now let's take a look at the figure's packaging. So here we have the packaging. Starting at the very front, we have Transformers on the side, we have the Legacy Evolution logo. At the bottom, we have Robots in Disguise 2015 Universe Strongarm in white text with a white Autobot symbol. We have a really cool workshop of Strongarm in her police car alt mode. We have an open way of displaying the figure in the packaging. If you do look at the top of the box, there's a QR code. If you do scan that, that'll show her stats. And of course, on the side here, we have two really cool workshots of Strongarm in her robot mode. One more of a close-up of her head and chest, and one more of a wide shot of Strongarm in a really cool action pose with her accessories or weapons. On the back of the box, of course, she transforms in 15 steps. There's a product shot showing off her inner robot, her police car alt mode, and of course showing off her Evo fusion gimmick. And on the final side, we have half of the Legacy Evolution artwork. So if you do get another deluxe from this Legacy Evolution line and put both boxes together, you can complete the artwork. And that is pretty much it for the packaging. So let's now get into the review. Here we have Strongarm in her robot mode. Let's take a look at the details, starting at the very top with that head sculpt. We have some really nice gray for the face, some blue for the lips, some blue for the eyes, and a bit of a darker blue for the chin. The entire helmet section is mostly done in a blue, white, and yellow, and there's some more yellow for the entire crest. I do like the entire front shoulder section here, actually made of the entire front headlights and front wheel from the police car. I think that looks really cool, with several different shades of white and blue, and some more kind of a blackish gray for the wheel. I actually really do like the detailing and sculpt work with the wheel. Unfortunately, they are a mushroom peg, but you can actually barely tell. And again, I really do like that design. I do like all the really nice striping detailing on the forearms and the sides of the legs, with some gray for the bicep, shoulder, and hand. And there's some really nice gunmetal gray for the entire stomach region here, with a very classic Autobot symbol done in red. And if we do look at the top of the legs, mostly done in that gunmetal gray with some white and blue for the front and sides of the leg, with some black for the feet. And if we do flip to the back, overall, pretty well compact. She does have a bit of a backpack. I really wouldn't say it's ugly. Definitely not the worst backpack I've seen with most other figures. I do have to say, quite a bit of the panels and stuff do sometimes get in the way with the articulation. But a good thing is, actually, quite a few of these panels actually do somewhat move out of the way, and it's a bit customizable to actually accommodate the articulation. So the door wings and the shoulder panels can actually move, so you can actually move the arms, and the legs, which is good to see. And again, the backpack really doesn't look that ugly. I think it's actually pretty well compact for how much this figure does, and of course for what it transforms into. I actually do want to say now, the second accessory is this entire light piece. The first accessory, of course, is the pistol. That'll show off in just a sec. This is technically removable. I really don't know why you ever would, because of course it turns into a police car, and if you remove it, it really won't be a police car anymore. So it's an option if you want to, but I probably will never remove it. But overall, I think it's a pretty good looking back. I do have to mention there is unfortunately a QC problem on my copy of this figure. I do want to mention now real quick, so of course you guys can actually look out for it whenever you get this figure. I think the official release date is October 1st. I actually was able to get this figure on eBay for actually a pretty good price with the other deluxes. So when I first opened this figure, there was actually a pin loose inside the box. It was actually rolling around. So definitely whenever you get this figure, make sure these two pins back here are actually present. These two pins actually attach to the door wings or the doors a part of the police car. You can actually tell one is actually sitting or sticking out a bit more than the other one. This one's actually flush, this one's not. That's because that one's actually quite loose. Good enough though, this door is actually not that loose. It is looser than the other one. You can definitely tell if you have this figure in hand right now. This one is definitely tighter. So definitely whenever you get this figure, make sure both of these are present, and also don't throw away the packaging immediately because it could be loose in the box. Then I am just saying that because maybe this could be, a very common problem, or it could just be my copy. I really don't know. But that's the only real QC problem I have. I probably will let Hasbro know about this. They probably won't send me a replacement because it hasn't even officially released yet. So they might just, I don't know, send something else, or just say, oh, sorry about that. I really don't know. But look out for that problem. As far as like the rest of the figure goes, that whole QC problem really doesn't affect the rest of the figure. If you're worried about, affecting the transformation or the articulation, it really doesn't get in the way. I can barely even notice. Occasionally it does pop out, so I sometimes actually have to put it back in. I might actually glue it someday, but not a huge deal. I probably will end up getting a replacement anyway. I just want to make you guys aware of that. But as for the articulation, of course, the head can look up and down, tilt side to side, look left and right. Little front shoulder pieces can actually hinge change up and down, in and out. The arms can move forward and back out to the side. There is rotation at the top of the arm. There is, of course, an elbow bend and a wrist rotation. As for the entire door wings, there is actually, of course, a hinge at the base. This can actually hinge out. There is also a swivel at the door, so this can also hinge forward and back. So pretty well articulated. As for, of course, the waist, you can actually move the backpack out, and of course you can use that to accommodate the entire waist. This can rotate all the way around. The legs can kick forward, back, out to the side. There is rotation at the top of the leg, a knee bend, and an ankle pivot. I'd say pretty good articulation. I would say probably at first glance you might think this figure is not that well articulated because of all, the panels and the cable and stuff and the backpack. But I think once you move all those panels out of the way, I think it's pretty well articulated. As far as tolerances go, I think probably my only major complaint is for the top of the legs. The rotation at the top of the legs is quite loose on my copy. Not the biggest deal because, of course, that's not really a core joint you actually use. Like, the legs kicking forward and the arms, that is much better. Really nice, tight, stiff joints. Also, unfortunately, since if you don't know, this is actually a repaint retool of the original Legacy Deluxe Class Elita 1. And this figure does carry that same tolerance problem you probably are used to by now, but the backpack does not tab in. That problem is occurring on Lita and Minerva. I was really hoping they would fix that with this. I don't even see any tab or slot, which is a shame. All they really needed to do was just add a small connection. I think that would have been nice, but not really to say I wasn't surprised. I was kind of expecting it. But as for accessories, as I mentioned before briefly, she does have that small little light piece back there, but she also does have this blaster, which is blast set piece compatible, which I think looks pretty cool. And you can store this using any mech port or, of course, her hand, which I think looks pretty cool. I actually kind of like the smoky, kind of foggy gray clear plastic they actually use for it. I do like the weapon, but I think they probably should have done a much more interesting weapon. Maybe they could have actually thrown in maybe a Decepticon Hunter. If you don't know, that was one of the major kind of key points in the Robots in Disguise series. It was one of the most common weapons. Pretty much the gist is you could actually get the weapon and imagine anything you wanted to, and it could transform into that weapon. So I think they actually had it as like a mace, a sword, a bomb, I think, so one time. So I think that would have been a really good idea to include that weapon with this figure, and it really would have improved her Evo Fusion gimmick. The Evo Fusion gimmick really doesn't come into play for this mode. It mostly comes into play for the truck mode, so make sure you stay tuned for that a little bit later in the review. I'll show that off. It's not a very good one. I'll just say right now, it's not a very good one. And pretty much the gist is you attach the blaster to the back of the truck. That's technically the, Evo Fusion gimmick. That's what they're calling it, of course, according to the instructions and the box. So I really wouldn't call that a gimmick. I would really just call that accessory storage. So if they included a Decepticon Hunter, I think that would have opened up a huge number of possibilities. Like it could maybe transform into two different weapons. I think that would be a really good gimmick. Because as it is, I really wouldn't call what they're giving this figure a gimmick. I really just call that accessory storage. But that is pretty much it for accessories. Again, on its own, it's a fun pistol. It is accurate to the TV series. I just think a Decepticon Hunter would be far more interesting than this. I hope maybe if they ever make Bumblebee or Sideswipe, they can include a Decepticon Hunter with them, because they actually did have one of the series. Sideswipe had some sort of kind of katana or sword, and Bumblebee had like this huge staff weapon. I think that would be a really good idea to do. But now for some comparisons. Here she is with her mold mates, that being the original Elita 1 from Legacy. I think they look pretty cool side by side. So differences wise, there's actually quite a few. Of course, the accessories, pretty much the entire top half of the figure is different. As you can see, the chest, the head sculpt, the shoulders, most of the arms. I do think the biceps and the hands are the same. If you actually do look at the side, the entire backpack is different. I would say the entire bottom half is quite similar. You can actually see from a side view here, the entire side of the leg, the feet are the same. So I'd say about 50% of the figure is different, which is pretty good for a repaint retool. I do have to say it probably wasn't the best idea. If I was in charge, of releasing a Strongarm figure, I probably wouldn't have done a repaint retool, considering this is actually the first figure or character from the Robots in Disguise 2015 show. I probably would have done a brand new mold. A good example is like, they made an animated Prowl. That was the very first figure or character from the animated TV series. They didn't do a repaint retool. They did a brand new figure, which I'm really glad. So it probably wasn't the best idea to do a repaint retool. Not gonna lie, when they actually first revealed this figure, I was somewhat disappointed because I was expecting for a while to have a brand new mold. That being said, it is a good repaint retool. I just think if I was in charge, I would have done a brand new mold. But for one final comparison, here she is with her wave mates, that being Detritus. And his review is up on the channel right now. Make sure you go check it out after this one. And that is pretty much it for this robot mode. Let's now get down to transformation. So now for transformation, what you're going to want to do is go to the inner part of the leg. You're actually going to flip these panels out just like that. Do the exact same thing on the other leg. Just flip this panel out just like that. Then you can actually flip to the back of the figure, open up this entire backpack section here, and rotate at the waist so the front of the legs are actually now facing the back of the figure. Then you're actually going to flip out this panel just like that. Just hinge this out. Then you can actually collapse the backpack and get these little door wings. These are just going to fold down to actually form the doors of the police car alt mode. So just hinge those in, and those will tab into place just like that. Do the exact same thing on their side, just tab that in just like that. Then you can actually go to the shoulder. As you can see, there is 2 tabs there, and there's this entire slot section in the shoulder, so that's just going to hinge and tab and slide into place just like that. There's also a slot right there and a tab where that door was, and that is just going to tab into place just like that. Do the exact same thing on their side. Just get the shoulder, tab that into place like that, and then of course there is that same tab and slot with the door, and you're just going to tab that into place like that. Then you're going to get this entire backpack panel section here, hinge this forward, and this is actually going to form the entire front hood of the police car alt mode. So of course there is slots at where the shoulders are, of course, or where the front headlights of the police car, and there is tabs where that panel that I just hinged down are, and that's just going to tab into place. And there we have the entire pretty much front half of the police car done. Then you're actually going to get the legs, just hinge these out. As you can see, there is a slot right there and a little clip or kind of tab right there. That's just going to tab into place just like that. Do the exact same thing on the other side. Just tab that in. As you can see, of course, there is a tab on this side where the leg was, and of course there's a slot on the other side that's just going to tab into place like that. And then as for the very last step, you're just going to fold the feet in like that. And that is pretty much it for transformation. Let's now take a look at the details. Here we have Strongarm in her police car alt mode. Let's take a look at the details. Starting at the very front, we have some really nice black for this entire front grille section here, as well as the headlights. Probably would have been better if those were done in like silver or yellow or something like that. I do like the blue striping on the front hood there with some really nice white. I do like the black tinted windows on the sides, and of course the front there looking really cool. We have the police siren or police light done in blue, red, and silver. I think overall that looks really cool. Of course, we do have the tires on the side. I think they are mushroom peg, but you can barely tell, so it really doesn't bother me. I do like the sculpt work there. Probably could use a bit more paint, and again, I do like the several different shades of blue and white on the side. I think that looks really good. We do have the feet somewhat sticking at the back, which I think looks, I guess, okay. You can somewhat tell their feet, but not really fully. I do like the really cool sculpted and kind of thrusters or boosters back here, which is pretty cool. We have the little trunk there, which it does somewhat play a part of the Evo Fusion gimmick and accessory storage that'll show off in just a sec. And of course, if we do flip to the bottom, we do see some of the remote, but overall pretty well compact and clean away. And we do have, of course, the top, and I think detail-wise, overall pretty cool. Overall rolls really well across any surface. So now for accessory storage and the Evo Fusion gimmick. Of course, typically most of the time the Evo Fusion gimmick actually comes into play for the robot mode, but for this figure, it's actually mostly a part of this mode, which it isn't the greatest of the Evo Fusion gimmicks we've actually had so far in this line. So the Evo Fusion gimmick is technically actually just placing it at the back. So of course there's this post on the weapon and the port right there, and according to the box and the instructions, that is the Evo Fusion gimmick, which I think is pretty lame, because I really wouldn't consider it a gimmick. I would really consider it mostly just kind of storage, like weapon storage. So it would have been nice maybe if they were a bit more creative and came up with something a bit more interesting, because, you know, in the past we've had far more interesting, far more creative, really cool gimmicks. So maybe they could have spent more money. Maybe they could actually put this figure like in the Voyager class price point, and I think a really good idea was actually to include the Decepticon Hunter with this figure, and they could have created some really cool weapons, because if you don't know, the Decepticon Hunter in the Robots in Disguise TV series was actually pretty much a weapon you could create from anything. If you just thought of like a mace, the whole weapon would transform into that. If you thought of like a sniper rifle, it would transform into that. I think that would be really good potential for some really cool gimmicks. So hopefully maybe whenever they make like a Bumblebee or a Sideswipe or something like that, I think that'd be really cool if either of those figures included that weapon. I do like the pistol. It is screen accurate. It is accurate to the TV show, but this I really wouldn't consider a gimmick. But other storage options, of course, is you can store on the side. There is a post and port there. You can store on the side, pointing front, so you have a little turret on the side there, which I think is pretty cool. And that is pretty much it for accessory storage. So now for some vehicle mode comparisons. Here she is with Shadow Striker, definitely probably the two weakest figures of Legacy Evolution Wave 4 so far. I have yet to get the Voyagers or the Leader or the Core class, but it'll probably stay the same even once I get those figures. So probably of all of Legacy Evolution Wave 4, these two figures here are good on their own, just in comparison to other ones, not as interesting and not as good. So if you are kind of on a limited budget and lack of space, if you just only want to get the best figures, I would probably wait on these and maybe get them on sale, like, around the holiday time, or maybe whenever Hasbro or Amazon does a sale. That would probably be for the best, but I think they look pretty cool side by side. And now for one quick mold comparison, here she is with the original Alita 1. And I think they look pretty cool side by side. You can definitely tell some similarities here and there. There's actually quite a few mold changes really where the front is concerned, but if you do look at the side, you can definitely tell quite a few of the pieces, pretty much end up in the same way. Like the legs, do kind of fold up to form the back wheel. The arms have that same sort of mech port. So you can definitely tell there's quite a few design cues and pieces which are quite similar. Of course, the feet end up in the exact same way. I think it would have been nice, considering there's actually quite a bit of new tooling on this figure. I think if they gone the extra mile to maybe cover up the feet a bit, that would have been pretty cool, to like add an extra sort of like trunk piece to cover that up. That would have been a really good idea. But that is pretty much it for comparisons and this mode. Let's now get down to reverse transformation. So what you want to do is remove the blaster, and as for, of course, the light piece, it is technically removable, but you can, of course, leave it on there. You do not have to remove it. If you want to, just in case you don't want to, like, flick it off or break it, that's up to you. But what you can do is actually fold the feet out just like that from the back. Then you can actually untab the legs like this, just hinge them out. Then you're actually going to untab pretty much the knees, just untab them like that. Then you can actually fully extend these down, and then you're going to fold in this panel like that, fold in this panel like that, and I'm actually going to zoom out so you can see what I'm doing fully. There we go. And then what you can do is actually untab the arm from the entire door like that. Then you can actually untab the sides of the car from the hood, and then you're actually going to pretty much hinge this entire front hood section up like that. Just get this entire section here, hinge this up. Sometimes it can be a bit stuck. Just use this hinge, collapse that up like that. There we go. Then you can actually bring the arms out, and then you can actually open up this entire backpack section, fold this panel in, and then you can rotate at the waist all the way around like that. Then you can actually collapse this back down again. You can then bring out the door wings, and these will just kind of fold up like that. And you can really position these however you wish. Of course, you can have them a bit more further collapsed. You can have them sticking out a bit more, really up to you. And you can position them however you wish. And let me just quickly straighten up the figure. And as for the last few steps, you can actually get the shoulders, disconnect them from the arms, and hinge these forward. Same on the other side, just hinge those forward. Let me just quickly straighten up Strongarm. And that is pretty much it for reverse transformation for Strongarm. Let's now get down to the final thoughts. Now for the final thoughts for the Transformers Legacy Evolution Wave 4 Robots in Disguise 2015 Universe Deluxe Class Strongarm. I think overall this is a really good figure that I do recommend. In some ways I actually probably like this figure more than the previously reviewed figure from Legacy Evolution Wave 4, that being Shadow Striker. I think definitely these two Deluxes are probably the weaker of the four that were actually released in this wave, and probably overall in Legacy Evolution just in general. I still do recommend it just in comparison with some other figures that are coming out in Legacy Evolution Wave 4. This is probably not as interesting because this is just a repaint retool. You do have to keep in mind, I do have a huge complaint and qualm with this figure because they actually had a lot of wasted potential and a lot of opportunities that they didn't take. This is actually the very first character they're actually doing a part of Legacy Evolution from Robots in Disguise 2015, that TV series. Of course, whether you like that series or not, I just think they probably should have done something a bit more special. For a good example is, the very first character they actually took from the animated TV series was Prowl, and that was a brand new mold. They could have easily just done like a retool of maybe the Prime Universe RC. Another example is the Armada Hotshot. Of course, that was the very first character and figure from the Armada series, and they did a brand new mold. So I really wish they had done the same treatment and same thing for this Strongarm figure here. That being said, it is a good repaint retool. There is actually some situations where I might like the repaint or retool of a figure more than the original. I think this actually might be one of those cases. I think I might like Strongarm here more than Alita or Minerva, which is good, but again, I just think for it being the very first character and figure from that TV series, they probably should have done a brand new mold. But really getting to my thoughts of the robot mode, I think overall it's actually really good, very accurate to the TV series. I think the head sculpt looks amazing amazing. I think the accessory is okay. It comes with like a small little police kind of cop pistol, which is accurate to the TV series. I think that's cool. She also does come with a little police light, which is removable. I really don't know why you would ever remove it, because of course then it really wouldn't look like a police car, but it's removable, I guess somewhat customizable, which is nice. I probably will never remove it, but it's an option if you want to. As far as new tooling goes, because again, if you don't know, this is using the original Legacy Deluxe Class Alita 1, which was a good figure and a good mold. I'd say about 50% of this figure is actually new tooling. So there's a brand new head sculpt, there's a brand new accessory, and the shoulders and some of the forearms are brand new. I do think the hands and the biceps are the same. Also, the chest is brand new. So mostly the main areas that are actually they're reusing from the past two versions of this mold are actually pretty much the entire bottom half, really where the waist and below where the feet, the legs and the top of the legs, most that is the same. I'd say a good majority of the top half of the figure is all brand new, which is really good to see, because sometimes with the repaint retools they might only change one minor thing, but there's actually quite a few new pieces on this figure, which is really good to see. I definitely think they missed a few opportunities where the accessories are concerned, because I think they really should have thrown in maybe like a Decepticon Hunter. I think that would have been a really good idea, because I think that would have not only improved the accessories, but I think it would have also given us a better Evo Fusion gimmick, because technically she really doesn't have an Evo Fusion gimmick in a robot mode. It mostly comes into play in the car mode, where you really just stick the blaster at the back of the police car. That's not really a gimmick, I would say. It's kind of like the Legacy Evolution Beachcomber all over again. His Evo Fusion gimmick was putting the weapon in his hand. This is pretty much just putting the blaster at the back of the car, which already is really just storage. I really wouldn't call a gimmick. So I think they probably should have included a Decepticon Hunter, which would be a much more interesting weapon than just a simple pistol. And of course they could have thrown in some really cool gimmick, like maybe it could transform into multiple weapons, because if you don't know, in the TV series, the Decepticon Hunter could transform into any weapon imaginable. So any, Bumblebee could imagine a huge mace and it would turn into that, or maybe a bow, or like a crossbow or something like that. And actually in the TV series, Strongarm did have a crossbow. That's actually what she used, or kind of a rifle weapon. That's what she used as her signature weapon. I think they should have thrown that in. Maybe if they wanted to, they could have been generous and actually thrown in both. Maybe they could have thrown in that small pistol, and also for the third accessory, they could have thrown in the Decepticon Hunter, and they could have given us a proper Evo Fusion gimmick, because as it is, there's not really a good Evo Fusion gimmick with this figure. As far as articulation goes, I think it's overall pretty good. Unfortunately, I think of the articulation of all three variations or repaints of this mold, this figure is probably the worst as far as articulation, because she actually does have quite a bit of back kibble, and the shoulders actually do get in the way quite a bit. That being said, you actually can move the shoulders out of the way, which is really good. But the placement of the shoulders and the pieces on Alita 1 and Minerva were a lot better, because the backpack is a lot smaller, and they actually don't have any door wings. With this figure, you do have to keep in mind she has really big shoulders, she also has door wings, and quite a big backpack, so there is quite a bit of a fiddle factor with this figure you do have to keep in mind. But again, you can move quite a bit of the pieces out of the way. It's just, there's a lot of kind of maintaining and moving for the articulation to actually be useful. You really don't have to do anything like that with Minerva or Alita 1, so probably the enjoyability factor might be slightly less on this figure. As far as transformation goes, I think it's overall actually pretty similar to Alita and Minerva. I think the main differences are kind of like the top half, like the shoulders and the backpack is slightly different, but where like the arms and the legs are concerned, quite a bit of that is similar. If this is your first time experiencing this mold, I'd say it's overall pretty straightforward. You do have to have some patience, because of course, as I said before, there's quite a bit of panels, quite a bit of a backpack, so you might have to move quite a bit of pieces to finally get it done, and there's not a lot of clearance. I wouldn't say it's to a point where it's, annoying or hard, but of course, do take your time. You don't want to break anything or of course mess anything up. As far as the police car mode, I think it actually looks really good. Unfortunately, it does have the feet kind of sticking at the back. You do fold the feet in, which is nice. It's kind of better than the Siege Ironhide. Those feet just kind of stick directly at the back. What you really do with this figure is fold the feet in to actually form the thrusters, which is cool, but maybe they could have actually added some new molded pieces to like actually cover up the feet, because again, this is there is actually a lot of other new tooling. Maybe they could have gone above and beyond and actually added some new pieces to actually cover up the feet. Kind of like actually what they did with the Earthrise Ironhide. They pretty much took that Siege Ironhide as a base, but they actually added that entire top shield piece to pretty much cover and conceal the feet, which I think it actually worked pretty well. So maybe they could have done the same thing with this figure here. But as for the other areas, I really do like the police light piece. Again, as I said before, you can remove it. I really don't know why you would. The blaster or the pistol can store pretty much using any mech Logitech port, which is nice. And the Evo Fusion gimmick, again, as I mentioned before, is really just storing it at the back, pretty much where the trunk would be of the car, which I really don't like. I really just consider it storage. I really wouldn't consider it a gimmick because it really doesn't do much. But I think it's a pretty cool looking car. I really do hope, though, this is a good repaint retool. I just hope maybe down the line, with future Robots in Disguise figures like Bumblebee, Grimlock, and Sideswipe, hopefully we can get some brand new molds and also maybe some better accessories. Because the pistol, yes, while it is accurate to the show, I just think they had a lot more potential for maybe like a Decepticon Hunter, maybe some blaster pieces. There was actually quite a few weapons in that series, so I think there was a lot of potential for them to include something more. This is a deluxe, so maybe I might be expecting too much. I think probably if this was a Voyager, it probably would have been better. Again, it's a deluxe, so probably I might be expecting too much. I do want to mention quickly the QC prom I actually do have on this figure. This could be really just my copy, but actually when I first opened the box, there was actually a pin loose where the door wings actually attach. You know, the pin kind of slides through to actually keep the door wings in place. One of them stays all the time. The pin is actually flush. It stays where it should be. The other one actually does have a tendency to pop out. I still have it. I place it back in there every once in a while. Of course, most of the time, if you do just leave it on the shelf, you know, where it is, it usually does stay. Typically, when I transform it, you know, and pose it around a bit, it actually does pop out. Actually, when I first got this figure and opened it up, the pin was already off the figure. It didn't just, you know, pop off whenever I first, you know, picked it up or transformed it. It was already out, you know, in the packaging. So the reason why I'm saying this is because whenever you do get this Strongarm figure, I think the release date is October 1st. Make sure you check the box and the figure so the pin is missing. I will do if you did miss it earlier in the video, whenever I'm actually taking a look at the details of her robot mode, I will show that specific spot of where the pin and the QC prom is in case you're kind of confused or something. So go back to where I actually was taking a look at the details of the robot mode, and I'll go into a bit more detail of that QC prom. But I'm just saying again now, just in case. So if you do get this figure in October or whenever, make sure, of course, you check the box and also check the figure. Because again, as I said, when I first opened the figure, the pin was actually rolling around in the box. I did just place it back inside, and yes, of course, it is a QC prom, so most likely you'll probably be able to contact Hasbro and maybe they could send you a replacement or something of equal value. They'll probably help you with some sorts, I'm assuming. That's probably what I'm going to do with this figure. I most likely will end up getting a replacement, but I really do hope you enjoyed this review. Hopefully it wasn't too negative. I think this is a good figure. I just think there's a lot of wasted potential and a lot of opportunities Hasbro should have taken. Definitely of the deluxes, this is probably not of the more interesting. I probably would highly recommend if you're on a budget, you know, and you don't have a lot of space, definitely get Bombshell and Detritus over this one. That is just my opinion. And maybe if you ever find this on clearance at like Target or Amazon, I would definitely pull the trigger and get it. I hope you enjoyed this review. Please leave all your thoughts on this figure in the comment section down below, and I'll see you next time.